once she starts. Got it. Sorry. All right. Amy, Tammy, Charlotte, how do you guys want to run this? We've got an awesome PowerPoint or slide deck here. Thanks, Leanne and Charlotte.
Yeah,
We got
I'd just say jump right in, Jay. We've got a lot of great content to cover, and I know our audience is really good at throwing up questions as soon as they have them. So we'll do our
excellent.
best to navigate that.
You guys see the screen?
Indeed.
All right. Speaking of Indeed, yeah, we're talking about hiring tips. So, right, it's one of the more common platforms out there. So we're just basically going to cover over some hiring tips, real hiring tips in real estate for the entrepreneurs of you out there. Recruiting's tough, right? It's a real challenge. Always has been. Complicated by macroeconomic factors of today's environment, with unemployment numbers being what they are, shifts in demographics and cultural attitudes of younger generations coming in and mixing with older generations. Nothing new there. It's just the continual cycle of exactly how I used to irritate the older people when I first started working, and I'm sure they did their grandparents when they started working. But those divides make it difficult sometimes, and hiring is tough, and keeping up with what those shifts are. Let me see, get in here, change this. Amy, everybody
Yes.
I think here knows you, and I'm just here to talk, so we can go past this one. Um, Identifying the hiring challenges, right? These are some of the things that we see coming in all the time. I don't understand today's workforce. That's probably along the lines of what I was just describing of who are these young people? Why do they want to work at 2 o'clock in the morning and, not be into the office until 9:45 or 10 o'clock in the morning? What's up with
Hear
all
that
this
a lot.
technology, right? What is it? Why do they just want bistro or virtual office spaces? Doesn't somebody want to come in and sit at a computer in a big room and, not just pay their desk fees, but actually use the desks? All these changes like that. How do you find good candidates? These are all things we're going to kind of explore here a little bit. I can't, in this mode, see the chat questions anymore. So anybody feel free to help me out as good questions pop up.
Will
I'll
do.
monitor it, no problem.
Charlotte's got the monitoring. Thank you very much for that. So hiring trends, right? This is based on our own customer data, but it's been backed up and also validated by, you look at other job boards and other aspects out there from Q4 2023. There's 141,000 total applicants for real estate jobs just through us. All right. And this is pretty representative sampling for the rest of the United States and everything we're seeing. 21,000 of those administrative assistants. That was the #1 job title applied for, right? Very common. Keep in mind what we're talking about. We're talking about teams in real estate, and they're starting to run more like businesses than I think they used to in the past. When teams originally kind of showed up, we were there and we were working with a lot of them, and they operated like a very small team of 2 people, 3 people, 4, and teams today that we've seen, and this has evolved over the years, start to focus more on this is a business. I'm not just a sub team underneath a broker, or I'm a broker even changing my attitudes towards running this less like an insurance company and more like a real business. And administrative assistants and transaction coordinators and specialization we start seeing to show up a lot too, right? This is something that we'll talk more
Absolutely.
about as we go through. So conquering today's hiring challenges, right? It's about understanding today's workforce. So what do today's job seekers value? And we can make this dynamic or interactive here. We've got enough people. And what are you guys seeing out there as far as what today's job seekers value? That's a loaded question with today, exactly how we're defining that, but you got a
Well,
small enough. Go ahead, Amy.
go ahead. I was just going to say flexibility. It seems like a lot of the applicants are looking for a much more flexible, not just the schedule itself, but the location. I'll be in the office a certain amount of the week, but I don't want to be there the whole week. And
Mhm.
I don't want to have to report in my, what am I doing every 15 minutes of the day? I just want to have an understanding of my job and do my job and not be micromanaged, is what I
Yeah.
hear.
It's a very big common one, right? And that's back to the macroeconomic changes that we talked about from a socio-cultural kind of change dynamic is that people are getting used to not working in the offices every day of the week. They're getting used to flexibility, remote work, the great resignation. All of these things have caused, regardless of age, today's workforce is much more nimble. They much more anticipate and expect to be able to have greater flexibility. You guys have to build that in as you're hiring, leading into the second question, really, how do you attract these top candidates? Understanding what they value is first. If I don't know what they want, and I should say that second, first, what I've seen and I coached most people on in real estate is your first step to attracting good candidates is understanding your value proposition to them. It's a shift from I'm in charge and I'm going to bless them with a job and hire them to thinking of them like your client. Somebody has a house, they can list it anywhere they want. Why are they going to list it with you? And what's great about this is you already have all of this in your heads. You're already conditioned to think this way. Right? How do I market to these buyers and sellers? How do I support them? How do I sell to them and convince them that we're the place to let them, have the success they want in selling their house or buying their house? It's the first step in being better at hiring. Is there maybe some old paradigms that I still hear around today of, hey, we're going to put a job out there, people are going to apply, we're going to screen them all and select which one we think is the best and reward them with a job offer. It's a fight, and you're marketing to them. One of the tips that I always talk about are, I think it was 65 or 70% of people that look at job boards before they apply check out the company's website. So when it comes to how do you attract top candidate, if all you're doing is posting it on a job board and you're not and they get to your website and they see you talking to all of your potential customers, but not them, it usually is a turnoff. Those teams that I know that do the best at recruiting, number one, they never stop recruiting. We'll talk a little bit about that. It's always on. It's just their attitude. Yeah. Because it takes a while to get that flywheel started, right? Hey, I filled the position. I got my new transaction coordinator, or my listing agent, or my buyer's agent, or just generalized real estate agent. All right, we're good. Right? Then you have to decide 2 months later to start it over again. So always be marketing, always be thinking again, treat them just like your customers. You wouldn't stop because you got a customer that wants to sell a house through you. That's great, but keep going. Figure out what it is they want. So it goes back to the first bullet. What are their values? That flexibility that Amy talked about. What other things have you guys heard out there as far as what the job seekers of today want in addition to flexibility? Anyone?
Well, I'll say for me is if the company is going to invest in me, let's say as an employee, like is there mentorship, continuing education? What does that career path look like? So I can see myself there for long term.
Growth, absolutely. And it's one of the big things that we see. People would rather have an investment in growth and maybe a little bit less upfront as far as revenue or income goes, total overall compensation, knowing that you're going to get them to the next level. And this is tough. Old school is you want to stay in here and we'll get you on the ladder and go to the next level and the next level and the next level. In today's economy, that ladder very many times is a different company. And it is counterintuitive. It creates this dissonance in your head to think, I'm going to bring this person in and develop them, and then they're going to take that talent and go somewhere else. And they might. We don't quite see the 30-year loyalties in today's new employees that we have in the past. So it's not uncommon, and we have to be okay with that. We have to get ready to say, I'm going to give them what they value, understanding what that means, and then delivering on that, just like a customer. All right. Was there anything else anybody wanted to add in, or anything on the chat, since I can't see that in this mode?
I was going to throw in, Jay, a sense of purpose beyond the business. It seems like more and more candidates are looking at what are you doing for your community or for the world, and not just cranking out the business.
Yeah. And we still see some pretty good divisions here, depending on the job type and cultural aspects. But in all, I'd say you're 100% right. is there's this social responsibility that has been growing for many years, nothing to do with any one specific industry, nothing to do with any one specific age demographic, but it's definitely being pushed more in this new cadre that we see coming in. So this all goes back to, I think I said it just yesterday, maybe to somebody that was on this call. I care less about the answer as long as we're asking the right questions. And I think from a coaching standpoint, that's the key to you hiring better, is what questions should we be asking? If you're trying to figure out what it is they value, you'll get good answers, then you'll get enough of them that it'll help. How are we attracting them? Talked about a little bit on the job side. If you don't have a good jobs board in your site, on your website, then that 60+% of the people that come to it off of a job board before they apply to kind of figure out, who are you? Are you socially responsible? Do you have flexibility in the job? Do people in their care? They want that personal connection. So another tip is, the best advice that I've seen is those job boards, the job site, right? A section on your website that has opening jobs and how you're recruiting, with case studies, with social proof. How many of you, show of emotional hands here, with the little emo thing on here, how many of you put success stories from your clients on your website, your sellers and your buyers? I would hope 100%.
Yeah,
What percent of you do that for your employees that you have, contract or otherwise, doesn't matter.
that's a great question.
It actually has an indirect impact on the people who are going to be selling or buying with you, because they like to see that you care for your people. It's a lot of the stuff we're talking about here doesn't just happen to the hiring, the people that are looking for a job. It happens to the clients. They still want a social responsibility. They want somebody that's taking care of their community, that has employees that are valued. And so showing that to the employees when they come in. So if you haven't set up a website on yours, a page somewhere on your website that has job openings, interview some of your great people, right? Literally get a camera. It doesn't have to be fancy. Right? It's 2024. It's not all formal. Take a camera and ask them a question about, why do they love being here? Right? What would you say to somebody else who is thinking about coming in and doing this?
Brilliant.
When you get to the point where you're starting to talk about the individual people, how do you understand what skills are necessary? Again, it's not the answer, it's, are you asking the right questions? And these are all about, if you notice, every one of these have a question mark at the end of it, right? You guys will have your own unique answers. But if you go through, and we'll share this PowerPoint or this slide deck with you. I'm old, I still call them PowerPoints.
I do too.
And then it was Keynote for a while, and now it's slides. But we'll share this with you. If you're getting your own answers to these questions, and we'll talk, again, as we're doing here, with some ideas on how that looks, then you'll be fine. Necessary skill set. I personally believe in finding the person who's got the right value fit and the right personality fit. Skills are acquirable knowledge. I can teach that. I can teach you how to use the CRM. I can teach you how to use this. If you haven't got your license yet, we can help you, support you through getting the license. It's just acquirable skills. It's knowledge. You can take it in and consume it. And with help and support, you can change and learn that. But you can't change your personality. You're not going to change your cultural values. You're not going to change the things that are core to who you are. So those are the things that we normally recommend hiring for. I get it. Trust me, I've hired plenty of people. It's a lot easier if I can find somebody that has both, but I'll be tempted to let go of somebody for whom maybe a cultural fit isn't quite perfect, but they've got the experience on the hard skills side that are perfect for me. It doesn't normally work out as well. I'll take, if I can only get one of the two things, the soft skills or the hard skills, I'll take the soft skills, because I can work on training the hard skills. I can't do the opposite. I can get the hard skills with a person who then is a great seller, a great closer, nobody in the office wants to work with. So they make their number, they hit their quota, but everybody wants to kind of avoid them, or they have high turnover if they're leading a team or that kind of thing. And in the end, it erodes the value of them having the right skills. So look for the soft skills and the values and the cultural fit and the hard skills, but prioritize the soft skills first. Communicate clearly with
Yes.
candidates, right? How can my business stand out in all the right ways? I think a lot of what we're talking about are some of the key differentiators here, right? Making it that you're talking about people first, not a job that we're going to bestow on you and lucky you, right? We're big fans of servant leadership. If you ever read Greenleaf's stuff, it's a great approach that empirically, I mean, the actual studies have been done, big ones in big corporations, brand names, and taking an approach that's more of a servant leadership attitude as opposed to like this demonstrative controlling, hierarchical leader approach gets better results. So if you're following those kind of processes, that's how you're going to stand out right away. People will notice, hey, they're talking about me. They're trying to understand me and what I want to do here and what's going to benefit me at this company. And then can technology streamline the hiring process? Absolutely. Our technology can streamline the process for you, right? That's some of the stuff that, why we exist, right? How do we get the majority of the legwork done to free you up to do that higher priority, higher order stuff that only you can do? The real sitting down of an interview, the getting to know of an individual, the judging of a cultural fit. So our system's designed to help get a great job description out there, proliferated as far and wide across all job boards that matter in our world, get candidates to apply, use screening tools to help start to prioritize and bucket them into maybe this is a higher priority group, and then this one if you have time, and then give you a system that helps organize them through an applicant tracking system. That's technology. That's how technology can be leveraged to give you more time, but it won't do for you what you need to do. It just needs to augment and supplement as a force multiplier, right? Supplement the stuff that you have to do. So then you apply what you need to be able to do a lot better. Real world hiring scenarios. Is there anybody that wanted to go through specific questions? Like, I've got this person and I have a question about X, or I can even stop screen sharing here for a sec. That would probably be better so I can see everyone's pretty faces.
Anybody in the midst of hiring right now? David?
David, I saw your hand. Are you got any questions you had, David, that you wanted to go over as far as tips or anything you're running into struggles wise?
No, not yet. I'm just beginning the process. Starting to look at adding another salesperson. So talking to a few people, but I haven't really gotten real far into it.
Yeah. Are you looking for brand new agents? Are you looking for existing established people, or any?
There's pros and cons. The new ones are nice because I can teach them the way I want it done instead of arguing with those that have done it their way for years. But I don't really want to teach them how to spell real estate either. So I don't know. It just depends on the person. If I find the right person, I could hire one or the other.
Yeah. What defines right person?
Basically, it boils down to gut feeling, and I'm about 50% right on that and 50% wrong. So that's why I'm watching how to get better at this.
I think it's great. That's a great example, and I've done it too. I think, first off, I'm a fan of intuition, right? I think much of today's society kind of, at least there's places where I've seen it promoted, is to, more like Descartes or something. You're trusting your rational, logical mind and don't go with just your gut. There's tons of evidence that your intuition and your gut is a whole lot of accurate. But when we see people that say things like, and I've been there, where it's about 50-50, my gut's right half the time, and then it's what am I missing the other half of the time? So if you look back and maybe talk about what is it that client wants, have you really asked yourself that question, right? When you say, what's the right candidate, have you written down somewhere, here's what the right candidate is, so I'll know it when I see it? What's worked in the past? What's right by me? How do I believe? What are my values? Because every one of you are different. David might be able to hire the perfect fit for him that maybe a 40% fit for Matt or Carmen. I'm just going based on who's next to each other's pictures here.
Devin had a couple of questions in the chat. She's asking, are emails a good way to attract new candidates? Any tips with that? And then part two, any tips for doing public recruiting events?
Big fan of public recruiting, right? Social open houses, things like that, networks. Referrals, statistically in human resources anyway, usually result in the best hires. By best, I'm defining that as stay longer, get better satisfaction scores, and people on the team work better with them. Why? Because I'm not going to refer somebody to come to work with me who I hate. Now, it's not the most robust and diverse way of doing it, but it is a great way. So leveraging your team internally first, the network effect, right? Snowballing, it would be called in some cases. I'm going to ask, hey, keep on the lookout. Anybody out there, tell them, let's talk, right? Let your friends know that we're interested in talking. Here's what we're looking for. That's number one. Social house, open houses, right? So inviting people, advertising and putting it out there, inviting people to come to the office, because again, it's a social sell. There's endless competition out there. It's in this industry specifically, it is ridiculous how much competition is out there. And now you've got virtual offices popping up. So there's not even a physical location in town, and they could sign up with this 3-letter word company over here, or this 4-letter company over there, and be completely remote. And, so they have to get to know you. Emails are okay. Emails are good only in making, hopefully, people aware of an event that is designed to actually get them to engage. All right. Emails are not going to be a solution for selling somebody. It all goes back to, if there's one thing that you write down from this, it's run your recruiting like you run your marketing. If there's an aspect of marketing that you do to get the sellers and the buyers, there should be a corresponding aspect for recruiting. If you do open houses in their office and you're inviting people to come in who may want to buy or sell, you should be doing the same thing. If you're staying warm and in touch with clients and prospects through some CRM program about ask questions of Johnny on real estate, you're giving education away for free, whatever you're doing to keep them warm, right? You can't control the sale, but you can influence and be ready when they're ready to sell or buy. Are you doing
You're the first person I've heard state it this way, and I just kind of want to anchor on this point. What I'm hearing is the personality that you are and what you've identified that works for you is going to attract a type of people who will be good fits in your culture, in your ecosystem. That's really interesting.
Are you familiar with the DISC and the values assessments that we incorporate?
Oh yeah.
So the DISC becomes a little bit segmented from that, depending on the job you're hiring for, right? So if I'm the team leader and I want a listing agent or an outside hunter-gatherer sort of sales mentality, right? I'm probably looking for something similar to the team leader's behavioral profile, more aggressive, type A, hard charging, okay, working with an ambiguity and not having a lot of details, constantly being on the fly, high persuader, influencing, things like that. The values piece of it, that tends to be pretty cohesive, right? It's homogenous. In the team that we're on, all of the people tend to have at least one of the values that they share in common. Behaviors can differ. And this comes down to the question of, if you're a team leader hiring a transaction coordinator, what would you anticipate your connection to be in that interview? If you're a type A, hard charging, you're a team leader or a salesperson because you're, this type A kind of person. Are transaction coordinators type A, administrative assistants type A?
Oh,
it's not right or wrong.
Generally speaking, no.
Yeah. So it's something to keep in mind is if I'm bringing those individuals in, I don't necessarily look for a behavior that's like mine, but I want values that are similar to mine. And that's where they'll fit into the culture. You're absolutely right, Amy. What else are you guys doing to get in front of customers? All right, email's got like a 1% response rate. So it's fine to have it running in the background with Boomtown or whoever you're using, what CRM you're on, it doesn't matter. But that's to keep dripping on them. But what are you inviting them to get them engaged?
Devin's got
that's yeah, that's a good question. We're in the process of creating an event, and I'm a little nervous about it because I've not done that before. I'm a new real estate assistant, and so I'm looking to create that event. I hadn't thought of just a social open house at the office. For some reason, I was thinking like it needed to be, at a restaurant. And then that kind of got me thinking, well, then what about food and drinks? But I guess it doesn't have to be that complicated. And then
No,
you're
it could
saying
be-
almost that it could be a consistent thing that reoccurs, like the office open house. Did I understand that?
I've seen it be like Phoenixville down the street from us is a big kind of old town with a whole bunch of restaurants and bars, and they do first Friday of the month.
Oh,
every
yeah,
Friday they block the streets off. I've seen teams do something similar where it's like a first Friday mentality, but they invite their own members to be in there, right? It's come meet the team. It's not, oh, you drew the short stick, you have to staff the March's team open house or something like that.
How do you get people to come? Because it's the same thing you were talking about in the beginning. We're up against that same challenge where, we have this big metroplex here in DFW. People want to be remote. They work all over the metroplex, and it's like they don't want to drive 30 minutes to come to a social. So I'm like, do we need to give away TVs or something? How do you get your own people to come?
Why would I pay you to sell my house? In the end, ultimately, why am I paying you to help me?
For guidance, to make
Knowledge.
sure.
What if you give away knowledge once a month? What if you have an education-based thing where everybody's invited? You don't have to be on our team, right? But so-and-so, and you can get the content to come from the team. So everybody loves being tapped. Well, most love being tapped to say, hey, you want to stand up for the February meeting and tell us how you masterfully closed that, Melissa? You want to get up, Jane, and tell us in May, what is it that you're doing that's working for you? Invite the competition. I don't care. I mean, if they're already a practicing agent, they're probably competition. There's not really a line there.
Yeah.
Consider them. Why not invite them? We've seen this kind of novel thing taking place, that it's all about getting that connection with people, and offering them TVs is cool. Depends on what size TV. I can get a like Spirit Airline down there, and I can show up for a big TV, but education.
That is so good. Yeah.
Right?
So speakers, yeah, basically inviting speakers, your own people or others. Yeah.
Hot topics, right? That's why I would pay you to help me sell or buy a house, because you know more than I do.
No, that was really good. That's a good way to always kind of reframe it when we're trying to look at how to approach this.
Yeah. And we normally see people repurposing that. Carmen Bryant, our wonderful vice president of marketing, is in here. I'm calling her out. You don't have to unmute, Carmen, but she would be, chomping at the bit to talk about repurpose it. If you just created some great educational content for people to come into your physical building and see, why aren't you putting it on your LinkedIn and your Facebook mastermind group? And why aren't you writing it up into a blog? And, it's real easy to repurpose that stuff, because you just get it out there as many places as possible.
Right.
And that draws the candidates in.
Exactly. Yeah, that makes it seem like a good place to be for everybody.
That's back to that shift. There's one thing you take away today: hiring is marketing. That's it. It gets more different. It's different once you get into the actual gist of which one do I pick, right? But it's marketing. It's prolifically advertising, being out there, creating educational opportunities, promoting your brand, making sure they know who you are. These are the people that you want to come to work for you. A lot of people, unfortunately, I've talked to, don't stop to think like a marketer and say, what's their values? And the very first thing on the screen that we showed, right? What are the employees' values? What do they value? What do they want? And I guarantee you stop to think, what does my prospective client want? So you got to stop and just treat it the exact same way. What's this potential new employee want? And how do we show them? And it's a sale. With the competition you have out there, right? In tech is 2.7% unemployment rate. The national average is closer to 3.6. So it depends on the industry you're in, but they're all low. So it is a buyer's market with regards to the employees. There's a lot more people looking to hire them than there are to be hired. So it's a competition. So you're not just marketing, you're selling.
Yes.
If you sell them the same old standard kit, they're probably going to buy from somebody down the street who offers them something that is much better for them. And that's probably because they started with wondering and asking, what is it they want? Get to understand it really well. And then our technology can take care of the rest of it for you, not to blow that off, but that's why we're here, is to give you the technology and the package that helps automate a lot of that stuff. And it gets you to a point where then you decide when to invest that precious time that you don't have to sit down and actually get into who am I going to interview first and how do I interview them, and tips on how to interview, and personalized support from hiring coaches and Charlotte and her team and things like that.
Perfect.
Jay, I don't know if you plan to get into it all, but I've been on your platform for years, and I really appreciate how you walk people through the flow. Can you just, and maybe you're going to do it later, so forgive me if I'm jumping ahead of the game, just the flow that your platform consistently recommends that people move through in terms of initial application. They do a DISC, they can answer certain questions. There's phone interview before you get face-to-face. Can you walk through that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, so it starts with, and I don't have a slide to support this, so hopefully this works, but you're starting with the end in mind. We already talked about that, right? Before I do anything, what do I think the right candidate looks like? What's the right for me? And then how do I understand who they are? But then from the actual logistical aspect, start with a great job description. And we can help you with that, right? We actually have professional writers, literally like their backgrounds are in writing and degrees and things like that. That's what they've done, is write up job descriptions. We like to think of them as resonant job descriptions. There's two aspects that you have to watch for. Are there words that a job board might trigger? So if you were to put in that as an example, unlimited earning potential, most of the big job boards are probably going to flag that because they've got very special rules. So you have to know these things. We know it for you, right? We can look at your job description and review it. One of our fantastic hiring coaches, or you can use one of our templates. But that first part is, will it clear the job boards? Does it have any words that might trigger it up? And is it resonant with the personalities that we're talking to? These job descriptions have been written to resonate with who you're looking for. So if it's a salesperson, it's going to have different tones and words than if it's an administrative person or an operations person or accounting or whatever. So once you get the right message, then it's getting it out to the largest audience. Our software is going to syndicate that out to 100 job boards. With the secondary level of jobs that look at those, it probably ends up reaching maybe 1,000 job boards, give or take. But there's other job boards that are smaller that look at the big job boards, and then they'll syndicate it to their little regions or specific industries. So that's casting a wide net. But now what do? What if you get 50 applicants? Can you stop and look at all of them chronologically? How do you decide which is the right one? So in there, you've got the behavioral assessment that's comparing them against a benchmark, plus the screening questions, right? You can select from a library of screening questions. This is all the screening phase. So screening is thinking it like looking for gold. You go progressively larger to smaller screens. So what are the things that you can use to thin down 100 candidates to know which one you have the 10 minutes to even think about, because everything's going on and there's fires to put out. And you're probably doing it in a car, eating lunch outside of another house somewhere, And so big filters, do they have the questions, the screening questions that you've put inside your Wizehire account? Yes, I have a license of real estate. Yes, I have 5 years of experience. We've studied statistically best performers in all of those roles. So when you see the personality screening inside there, that's looking at excellent, very good, average, or poor, and it's a proximity. It's does this individual have the same values and behavioral personality tendencies that we see the best salespeople have, or the best administrative assistants or whatever? And that's where you then start using the applicant tracking system. So you basically, for you've picked a job description, and click submit. And now you're out to taking care of other work, right? You're putting fires out, you're making sales, you're signing up new listing clients. You come back in and you see there's a cadre of applicants. They've already been sorted and screened, so you can go to the highest priority ones in your world based on the filters that you set in. And then you move them through a process. Our applicant tracking system is just stages. You know, it's the phone screen is what we normally recommend. That's a bigger filter. I'm going to put 10 minutes in, 15 minutes in, and I can tell a lot from that initial phone screen. Were they 5 minutes late? Did they show up on time, or a Zoom screen? You know, if you were to invest an hour full live interview with every single applicant, it's going to take forever. So you're using those progressively finer screens, less work from you to more work. And it evolves to a point where, again, back to what we talked about earlier, your time is being preserved for those people that are, you know, have gone through a couple of layers of filtering to say, okay, now after a phone screen, I'm going to see if I can actually bring them in. So in there in the applicant tracking system, you can create your own unique stages. It might be a phone screen. It might be go to Topgolf with them. Number 2, it might be have lunch with them. Number 3, whatever your process is, there's tips and recommendations in there, but you can customize it for your own flow. You might have a team approach where you want them to meet with one of your other salespeople.
Yeah.
You know, so you just title in there, second meeting, sales meet, you know, whatever you want to put. And then in there, there's tips on interviewing and things like that. You know, some team interview stuff, questions. You can look inside their assessments and the rest of the stuff inside their dash and see their resume, and all of that stored in there. So you move them through and filter down to where you get the final few. Recently, there's been added in there late last year, the ability to even make an offer through the system. If you drag them over to the columns, just click and drag. It's very easy and intuitive. But that's it. It's not that complicated in theory. It's just having a kind of a process or a methodology to follow through. Know what they're looking for, figure out what drives them. If I'm putting my sales and marketing hat on when I'm marketing, I'm probably pretty good. I'm going to be thinking in that same mode. And then let our system provide the tools and the resources that you may not have. If you have it, that's great. But that's really why we exist, is to have the experts that understand what it means to have a great job description. That's all they do, is they look at these things and say, what's compelling? And they're updating it constantly. Oh, you know, I can't put that in there now because that job board doesn't like that phrase. So it prevents you from losing time, which is really, in your world, and I know it's the same in many, but in yours specifically, not a lot of extra.
I'm reading a comment from Devin that I don't think you can see, Jay. It's pretty supportive of what you've already said. I'm curious, what are the biggest fails you see realtors making in the hiring process? You've touched on a couple of them.
Yeah, not appreciating that somebody's attitude, values, and personality needs to be different than mine. So for those that are, you know, visible to me, show of hands, how many are in sales versus support and operations? So sales.
Should be most of the people.
Most of the people. So if you go in and you hire somebody who's in operations, you're hiring them because they're great at what you're not. You're not hiring because you don't have time for it. It really comes down to a specialization of they think differently than you do, right? And I'm making some very generalized statements just as a demonstration, not always true. But salespeople and team leaders typically have less concern about details and are much more focused on growth, and they have a utilitarian approach. Hey, okay, so it's not the prettiest thing, but it functions, it works. You know, they're fans of MacArthur, right? I'd rather have a hastily planned attack today than a perfectly planned attack tomorrow, you know. But then when you get to a certain size, operations will kill you. And so one of the first mistakes I've always seen people make is they try to hire themselves, and they judge the candidates by going, would I go hang out and have beer with that person? Would I take a trip with that person? And if they're a very different personality, that might be exactly what they need for the role. And you have to remember that and say, well, do you want to do all of this stuff? Are you good at accounting? Are you good at organizing and detail work? So don't hire yourself is tip number one. Number two, we talked about, right? Figure out what it is for them. And you're selling. I see it. I've seen it 100 times. They don't look at it like I'm trying to sell to this person. They look at it as, hey, if you're lucky, you can join my team.
Yeah.
You know, and it's not going to garner a lot of favor, especially with what we talked about in the shifts and cultural attitudes of, you know, diversity and social responsibility and not wanting their life to be everything that they think about all day long. They want more freedom and autonomy. And so I think if you're focused on those few things, right, figure out what it is they want, figure out what you want, realize that they're supposed to be different than you. Don't hire yourself. And then think like a salesperson or a marketer when you're going out to them. That constitutes a really big shift for most people.
Great feedback.
And obviously let our system help. I said I'd have a 5-second plug in there, but I think our system is fantastic and designed around, this is where we grew up, right? 10
I'm a
years ago.
huge fan. It's a really solid platform. It's easy to use and it does exactly what you need it to do, which is screen and narrow the field.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it. That's my plug.
Sorry, I jumped in and did that for you. I am curious with the folks that are on the call today, what their pain points are. Where do you feel the most challenged in the hiring process? And anybody's welcome to chime in.
Yeah, please. How many of you are constantly hiring? Actively, not thinking about it, but taking activity to do it. All right. So I saw quite a few hands come up when they were thinking about it from a mentality standpoint, but I only saw 1 or 2 hands stay up when I said you're doing activities every day to think about it. So that's a big spot to focus on too. And it's tough. I know you got to focus on making the money, not spending the money is the old business attitude, right? Hiring people costs money.
You mentioned having a good presence on your site for candidates. Do you have an example or two that you could throw to the audience of somebody who's doing a good job of that these guys could potentially model after?
Yeah, I'll find a couple. I've got several. I'll send them afterwards, but I can send a link over. It's public pages, so I'm sure they wouldn't mind. You know, a testimonial video from employees in-house.
Is there, I had posed a question at the very beginning about video. Is there a benefit? What are the pros and cons of the leader themselves putting a video out? Does it chase off or attract candidates to have the leader themselves?
I think it's both. I think you need both. I don't mean it's both as in pros and cons. There's very few cons I can think of. I mean, if I'm a team leader and it's called the J team, right? Then the person I'm attracting is either going to be somebody who's already well established, right? And they just want to come in and have their own autonomy. That's a different sale. You know who they are. You can look at broker metrics and see what they're doing. And you've probably known them for years and you have lunch with them. But the attraction to the audience is probably stronger for those people that want to come in and learn. So I would make the team leader a figurehead, not too egotistical a way, but I would make them the figurehead because what we hear from people applying for jobs in real estate on teams, even in brokerages now, and this has shifted a lot in the last 2 years, is they're there, like Charlotte said, what are you going to do for me? How do you develop me? How do I learn? How do I get better at this? And the figurehead, the team leader, is the one who's going to coach them through that.
Absolutely.
You have to be out there. And then the others are social proof, the testimonials of other team people who are like, hey, I've grown so much here. I've developed a lot here. Benefits of this culture, blah, you know, whatever the different things are they want to talk about.
Great input. I don't mean to hog on all of the questions. If anybody else has something they want to throw out, just
And I
trying to
appreciate you
speak.
summarizing the questions on the right, because when the slide's up, I can't see it, so.
Quite all right.
What else? Did we miss any? I think we got most of them. There's servant leadership and
Yeah, I think it all got hit. Anything else that was in your slide deck that you wanted to get to that we derailed you from?
no. Last one
Okay,
says
good.
questions.
Great.
I'd
Okay.
much more have a dynamic interactive than just presenting one way.
Matt, I see you're here, and I know we've had this ebb and flow discussion about leverage. Is there anything you would want to ask Jay while we have him?
That sounds like a trap.
Danger of
don't-
having a coach on the call, sorry.
Exactly. I don't have anything specific, but it's making the gears turn.
Okay.
But I do like the aspect of, again, sort of, I talk a lot about an avatar buyer for my listing. And basically what I'm reminded of is to create an avatar salesperson, an avatar assistant. And that
Yep.
has to come along with, and I wrote this down, job description.
Yes.
And I think it's easy to say, oh my God, I need help. Find someone, but specifically, who's the person? What's the personality profile?
And
Absolutely.
what
And
the
I
heck
think
are you gonna have them do?
what are you going to have them do? You brought up job description, right? That's a small detail that I kind of forgot. When you're writing the job description, should it be on this continuum of scientific, governmental, all bullets, and it's factual and says, here's everything that you'll have to do, and it gives you kind of cold chills and feels like something the IRS sent you in the mail? Or do you go over to this side where it feels more like a warm, inviting marketing kind of description, and I think the ones that we see that get a more constant flow of higher quality candidates are the ones that lean well more towards, think of it again back into, it's a marketing piece, it's a sales piece, it's not a cold sterile, here's 23 bullets of what you'll do and you'll get paid X, but in this range. It's developing you. I mean, when you're writing the job description, and we have great job descriptions up there for you to use, and if you go in and you'll see some of these templates, you'll start to appreciate it's the same kind of thing. If we're talking to the person about what's in it for them and why it's a great place and how you're going to invest in them, and back to figure out what they want and tell them how you give them what they want. But it's and somebody put it in here in the very beginning as well, you did, Amy. It's a shift. It's a shift from I will bestow a job on you to I have to earn your business, no different than a lister or a buyer. And that's a biggie.
How do you feel, Jay, about inviting the applicant or new hire to sort of be creative? Like I've always joked, and it's not necessarily good, but my style is I just throw a ball and that's the goal, get there. How creative do you like to think of the process to invite the new hire to revamp systems that might be better? If I'm hiring somebody that's better at it than me,
Yeah.
how much do I let go?
I think it depends on the culture, right? Some are going to have very established systems, probably on this call, where I don't want somebody to reinvent anything. I need to know that you're a project manager who's going to follow through with this and not rock the boat. Others are going to want that. So the culture is what really will dictate that. And neither's right or wrong. But Matt, if your culture is much more, I want that flexibility, and you guys can create what you're talking about is, can I have an opportunity to demonstrate before I hire, can I give them the opportunity to demonstrate what it is I'm looking for? And now, of course, you've gotten to, the very highest levels here. This isn't something you're likely to be doing as a screener on 50 people. This gets down, I would imagine, to the top 2 or 3. But I love the idea of real world scenario. What would you do differently here? And see what they come up with. That would be more in an interview setting.
Yeah.
And I'm a huge fan of group interviews, not just myself, but again, studies and data shows that you do better when you have multiple people interviewing. Everybody's got their own perspective, and all of us come with one of the 120 subconscious biases that all humans have. This depends on which day and what time. So having multiple people looking at it helps me understand maybe I'm not seeing this the right way. They'll see things differently than I do. Team interviews and structured interviews are way more beneficial, way more accurate at predicting future performance and satisfaction than a single unstructured interview. You know, like I'll meet you at lunch and, you know, shoot the proverbial, you know what, and just see how it goes. That doesn't have anywhere near the ability to accurately predict 6-12 months down the road, whether that person's happy or the company's happy with them. Structured interviews that are standardized across everybody so you can compare it, right? And teams doing that, multiple people at least interviewing that individual, huge difference. All right.
Great input. Great input. Any
Yeah.
other questions you guys have for what the Wizehire team today? What can they do to help?
And we've got Charlotte, Leanne, Carmen, they weren't planning on speaking, but they showed up. So all's fair, right? If
Typical leader.
we've got
Put your
massive
team on the
talent right
spot.
here in the room. So ask them for what they've seen too, if you want. Okay. Cool.
This has been super helpful today. I took a ton of notes. I really appreciate, again, Jay, that you would take the time out of your schedule to do this for us. With your permission, we'd love to kind of make this evergreen content, and we'll host it up on our YouTube channel so that people can come back in who weren't able to make it and listen.
Absolutely. Whatever supports you guys. That is literally why we're here. And this isn't a one-time thing. So you have Charlotte's contact information I can see in the lower corner. And
Beautiful.
mine is right there. So don't hesitate to use it.
Awesome. You guys are the best. Thank you so much. Any of you who are on, if you have follow-up questions, please feel free to reach out and we'll be here for you.
Thank you guys very much. I appreciate it. Anything you need, you let us know.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jay. Thanks, Amy.
Thanks, everybody.
Our